All right, everybody, welcome into the Hayden Coker Show live. Appreciate everybody for coming in this afternoon. Massive show today. The college football playoff is officially upon us, and this is the Hayden Coker Show live presented to you by the Chick-fil-A in Pell City. Highly appreciate the guys over at the Chick-fil-A in Pell City. Brian Jennings, thank you for all that he does as well. But guys, massive weekend. Big weekend. Indiana playing Notre Dame tonight. Going to be a massive game. It's going to be a really fun game to watch. I think that Indiana has the facilities to keep this a really close game and honestly make it a game going deep into the fourth quarter. You've got Riley Leonard, who is not necessarily one of the better quarterbacks in the country, but he's really good at throwing the ball. He's really good with running the ball as well. You have Jeremiah Love in the backfield. He's fantastic. Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love, one of the only quarterback and running back duos in the country with over 10 rushing touchdowns on the year combined. So I really think that we are in for a really good matchup tonight. That's going to be a really fun one. But the question is Indiana's defense going to be able to hold up? You've seen at times this year where their defense has looked fantastic. Their front seven has been really, really well, and they have been really, really consistent. Now, if you look at the Ohio State game, you can say otherwise. Well, you can say all you want to about that, but what really matters about that game is the final outcome, and then you can dive deeper into it. So obviously, we know the outcome. We all know the score looked really, really bad. Indiana from the start, it was a really good game. Indiana actually scores first. They go up 7-0, and then you give the ball back to Ohio State, and then it's just kind of a different story. So while it was, I honestly did think it was a really fun game to watch. I say really fun game to watch. I thought it was a really cool game to monitor. I didn't get to watch the game. I was at work. But me and all my coworkers, we were all monitoring the game as it went on. So that was one game that I thought was really fun to watch. Monitor. But now for Indiana, it's a time to really sink into what you've been saying all year. You know, if you claim to be a top 10, top 12 team in America right now, well, then it's time to put that on display. Because I think that Notre Dame's a top 10 team in America. I really do. Some people, obviously, we live in the South, and it's not as popular as a topic to some other people. You know, they're not in a conference. They're an independent, and everybody has their own opinion about that. I personally think they should join the Big Ten. I think it would be fun for everybody. It would incorporate more of a competitive gameplay into their season-to-season play. So it's interesting to see what Notre Dame does over the next few years. I don't think they join a conference. I think they more than likely stay independent. There were some rumors earlier on in the year about them potentially joining a conference, but obviously that was not true. That did not come to pass. But what those rumors were, it was discussing them, Florida State, Notre Dame, and then one more team. I don't really remember who it was, but it's kind of irrelevant because it was never in the talks anyways. But there was a rumor of those three potentially joining the Big 12. I still think that Clemson and Florida State might do that. Do I think it would be a good move? Maybe. When it comes to revenue, yes, probably. But and when it comes to popularity, no, I don't think it'll be a good decision at all. I don't think they should do that. What I am thinking might be really interesting that comes over the next few years is Notre Dame scheduling more Power Four. I say Power Four, scheduling more of the top Power Four teams. You know, like the teams in the SEC in the regular season. We saw it this past season when it came to the first game of the year. Notre Dame played Texas A&M, and it was one of the better games of the year. So obviously, it was a very defensive dominated game. But if you're a defensive dominated person, if you like defense, then that was your football game. So I really think that was one of the better games of the year, and I think that was one of the more fun games to watch, especially from the defensive perspective. But it's got to happen more often, I feel like, because Notre Dame is kind of they're kind of padding their schedule with some of these softer teams, which you can say whatever you want about it. They're still Power 4 teams. Obviously, you have the Northern Illinois of the world, but what it really comes down to is Notre Dame joining a conference. Does that happen? Like I said, I don't think so. But what it really comes down to is them scheduling and playing these harder teams and these teams of higher caliber. So the more that happens, obviously, it's going to be more fun to watch. One for Notre Dame, and two for fans all around the country. So, but tonight, I think it'll be a fun matchup. It snowed earlier in South Bend, so it's not snowing right now. The field is cleared, so it's still going to be a fun game regardless. You have SMU and Penn State tomorrow night. It's going to be a fun matchup. You have SMU, who's averaging just under 100 rushing yards per game on the defensive side of the football. Now Penn State, they run the ball a pretty good bit. So I think that it'll be a very interesting game there. Then you have Clemson and Texas. That'll be a fun matchup. How's Texas going to fare off? How's Clemson going to fare off? Going up a notch in competition. So that'll be fun to watch. See how Cade Klubnik adjusts. And then you have the other game that we're looking forward to, Tennessee and Ohio State. That one's going to be a fun one tomorrow night. You have Nico Iamaleava, who's not necessarily experienced when it comes to the college football playoff. Neither is any other player on Tennessee's football team, except for maybe some transfers that I don't necessarily know about. But you have some of these teams that are going to make a statement. Ohio State, obviously, they need to win tomorrow night. Tomorrow is a massive game for them. For one, you're playing Tennessee. Everybody's saying, oh, Tennessee's not used to the cold. Well, guess what? It's 35 degrees in Knoxville today, and I believe it's 34 degrees in Columbus today. So you can't really make that argument. I think that Tennessee is going to come ready to play tomorrow. I don't necessarily think that either one of these teams are going to be in the college football playoff game. I think that Ohio State is probably going to go down. We'll talk about that game a little bit later. But all these games are very, very interesting. SMU and Penn State is probably the game that I think is not going to be as fun to watch. I think it's going to be a little bit of I won't say snooze fest. I think the game is going to be close, but I don't necessarily know how much is going to be done on either side of the ball, especially offensively. I don't think that SMU is going to be able to put up too many points, especially with it being in Beaver Stadium or in a Happy Valley. But I certainly don't think that Penn State's going to put up many points either. Now, you can say all you want about them putting up 38 against Oregon, but Oregon doesn't have a good front seven. Obviously, I think their secondary is a little bit better than their front seven, and it kind of makes up for that. But look at it from both sides of the ball. Offensively, Penn State, they're good. I don't think they're great. They played a lot of lesser competition this year, and I think that's kind of what has padded their offense a little bit. But they're good. I'm not going to discount them any. I'm not going to say that they aren't good. What I am going to say is that I think that SMU is going to be able to put up a few points. I'm not going to say that they do it. Now, I'm not going to say they go out there and put up 30. I do think they go out there and they put up some points. This is probably the game I'm least excited for, though. And when I say that, I mean this. And even with the Clemson and Texas game, because I genuinely think that game is going to be close for at least the first half. SMU and Penn State, I think it'll be close, but I don't think that the energy is going to be there. Like for around the nation, I don't think it has that buzz factor that games like Tennessee or Ohio State or Notre Dame or Indiana have. And that is just solely because of the two teams playing. Now, look at Penn State. We all know they are a generationally, they are well known, and everybody likes to watch Penn State, especially when they're good. Now, Penn State's good this year, but when it comes to their style of play, it's just not attractive to watch. It's just not. I don't think that James Franklin is a very good head coach. Obviously, he's to where he is today because of him being good in the past. I firmly believe that, and I understand that. Kevin Moore chimes in and says, in my opinion, Indiana doesn't belong based on no top 25 wins, but Notre Dame will make them wish it was basketball season. Kevin, I really like the reply, and I understand where you're coming from. To me, it's I disagree with you in the aspect of I think that Notre Dame makes them think that it's basketball season. On somewhat, I do agree, but in that aspect of, hey, Notre Dame's going to win, I do think that Notre Dame will win this game. Heck, I think Notre Dame is going to make the college football playoff championship game, and that's just strictly due to the path. So I think that Notre Dame wins. I think they keep it close, and defensively, they're going to win the football game. Offensively, I'm not really sure how much they move the ball. I'm not sure if they score 30 points. I'm just not. I don't think that these are two teams that are going to be able to go out there and do that. Now, I get Kirk Cignetti and the guys over there at Indiana, and they put up a pretty good amount of points this year. But let me just tell you why they've done that, because they have not played much competition. The only ranked team that they played, now I get it, you can talk about Nebraska, who was ranked in the coaches poll. They were ranked 25th. Indiana blew their doors off. You can talk about some other teams they played who were maybe closer to the top 25, still not necessarily as good as like teams that's like teams. They aren't playing competition that Tennessee's playing. They aren't playing teams. They aren't playing teams like Notre Dame is playing. I'm not saying Notre Dame has a great SOS, but anyways, Mickey Farmer says, "Go Hoosiers." Kevin Moore chimes in, says, "It's all good. I see Notre Dame versus Oregon or Texas." Now, Oregon's another one to look into, and we'll look into that a little bit later. But like you said, Indiana, the strength of schedule is not there. Do they belong in the playoffs? Obviously, and I'm going to go ahead and say this. I do think that they are one of the top 12 teams in the country. I do think they can go out there and make some noise. But when it comes to belonging there, when it comes to proving that you belong there, there's not much to stand on. You're just standing on sand. You built a house on sand. It's not going to go anywhere. And I think that's kind of what Indiana has done right now, especially with how their schedule is built. So if you want to go all biblical with it, they're kind of built on dirt, or not dirt, but sand. Notre Dame, however, schedule, but guess what? They've done what they needed to do to get into the playoff. Early on in the year, they beat Texas A&M. While they did lose to Northern Illinois earlier on in the season, I think we can all agree that obviously Northern Illinois is not the better team in those certain situations. Now, I get you cannot go into a week-to-week basis by playing the type of game that Notre Dame played when it came to that game. But obviously, I do think that Notre Dame belong. I do think they belong. I'm not saying they have earned that by the schedule they played or how they lost to Northern Illinois. What I am saying, though, is that on paper and how they played this year, I do think they belong. Now, obviously, you can continue to go back to that Northern Illinois matchup, but from my perspective, I do think they belong, and I think they're one of the better teams in the country right now. And I think they proved that by making the college football playoff this year. Although you can say whatever you want to about their path right now, that's just how I believe, and that's just how I think. But tonight I'm going Notre Dame. I think that Notre Dame wins. I think they established the run game early. Now, if you look at if you look at Indiana and how their run defense has been this year, it's been pretty dang good. They've been really, really solid, and they have a really solid foundation when it comes to the defensive side of the football. You can look at Ohio State and look at that game and disagree all you want to, but if you really look at Indiana from a statistical standpoint, from a standpoint of how they played this year, and not just that one particular game. Obviously, that game is going to stand out. But overall, I think that Indiana is really good defensively. They're really solid. But I think that Notre Dame tonight they're going to be able to run the ball. They front, they're physical. Jeremiah Love is one of the better running backs in the country, and he's going to be for years to come. He's just built different. Riley Leonard, obviously, he's not going to be there next year, but they've started and they've solidified a solid foundation. And I don't necessarily think that this Notre Dame team is going anywhere. So I think they win tonight. And I think defensively, they're able to make a few plays that they really need to make. I think they forced Curtis Rourke to throw the ball in some questionable coverages. And they win the game. I think that Notre Dame forces a few too many turnovers for Indiana to overcome. And Notre Dame advances on to the next round. Then you have Clemson and Texas. Clemson and Texas is going to be a fun matchup taking place tomorrow afternoon. I think that Clemson can keep it close. Clemson's defense will keep them in this game. How Cade Klubnik responds in this game to a really nice defense is going to be very interesting. So I don't think that Cade Klubnik or the coverage around Cade Klubnik is enough. I think that I'm going to call him Cade. I don't think that the coverage around Cade is enough right now because of the way he's been playing. He's improved significantly over the years. Obviously, the level of competition in the ACC, say whatever you want to about it. Obviously, it's not great, but with the way that Cade Klubnik has played against those ACC defenses over the years and how he's come to now, he's improved a lot. And if you can't look at that and really, really see that, then I don't really know what to tell you. Klubnik has improved drastically. I think that he makes some plays tomorrow in the Texas game. I don't think it's going to be enough because I think that Texas defense is enough to make or is good enough to make him force a few turnovers. But I just don't think that there's too. I don't think that there's a lot of coverage around Cade Klubnik in the progression that he's made, and that is specifically why I think that it'll be a little bit closer of a game than people are thinking. Now, Texas is a 12-point favorite, 12.5-point favorite, if you will, and I think they cover that. But I think that up front, they're going to be a little more physical later in the game, and that is going to be what decides this game. That's going to be what decides the game. They're going to get pressure on Klubnik, and they eventually win the game. Clemson has some playmakers, and Bryant Wesco Jr., obviously, you have Phil Maffa as well. Wesco's only a freshman, by the way. He's only a freshman, and he's been really, really nice this year. You have Antonio Williams on the outside, who's another fantastic wide receiver. He's a senior. I believe he'll be moving on after this year. But Clemson's really good offensively. They just have not necessarily shown that at times this year. Now, if they can do that, if they can spotlight that tomorrow, I think they have a good chance to win the game. But I don't think they can do it for all 4 quarters. And I'll go ahead and say that right now, and I'll leave it at that. So I'll take Texas tomorrow in what is going to be a very, very good game defensively and might be a little more low scoring than people think. So I'll take Texas to cover the 12.5-point spread, but I think it comes a little bit later on in the game. So garbage time, maybe when it's a 10-point game, they score to make it a 17-point game or 13 points, whatever. But I'll go Texas, and I'll take the 12.5-point spread. Now, Tennessee and Ohio State, another fantastic game that we're going to be looking forward to. This is one of the games that I'm most looking forward to for one reason and one reason only. It is Nico Iamaleava's time to shine. Is he going to be able to do it against that Ohio State defense? Now, my main concern for Tennessee tomorrow night is, are they going to be able to run the ball against that front seven? It's a really, really strong and physical front seven for Ohio State. Now, you can say whatever you want to about the Michigan game and how they lost that game. Guys, Michigan scored 20 points in that game. Or what was it, 23, 20, 23, somewhere around there. Either way, they weren't able to move the ball very effectively all game. Ohio State wasn't either. That's where I'm kind of concerned about them as an offensive from an offensive standpoint. I'm very concerned. I don't think that they'll be able to move the ball, and that is kind of what I think their downfall will be. But Michigan put up some points. That was the thing. That is a bad football team that found a way. If that is a bad football team putting up 20 points against Ohio State, I get it. It's all matchup perspective. But you have to look at it from a different point of view as to, hey, obviously it's a rivalry game, but how is that specific play coming from Ohio State, and is that going to translate into this college football playoff game? It can't. If it does, Ohio State is in for a world of trouble. Tennessee might blow them out if that's the case. That's not the case, though. I think that Ohio State struggles a little bit in this game. Defensively, Tennessee is going to stand their ground. You're going to get the running game going with Dylan Sampson a little bit. Now, I think that early on they struggle, but I think it opens up a little bit for Nico Iamaleava to really succeed in the passing game. I think he's got to take those quick throws first, then then as he gets comfortable, you have to ease him into this game. This is not a game that he can just go out there and sling the rock around. He's not one of those quarterbacks just yet. Obviously, he's a redshirt freshman. I think he's been phenomenal, or I won't say phenomenal this year. I think he's been pretty decent this year. He's been good enough to get Tennessee by the skin of their teeth in some games. When I say the skin of their teeth, I'm talking about Arkansas. I'm talking about Vanderbilt, and talking about Florida. Florida should have won that game, by the way. But yeah, I think that this is a very, very interesting football game. Now, defensively, I think Tennessee is really going to make their money tomorrow night. This is where they're going to make their bread. This is where the spotlight is going to be on. It's not going to be Nico. It's not going to be Dylan Sampson. It's going to be that defense. I think they forced Will Howard to make a few errant throws, trying to get it to Jeremiah Smith. Obviously, he's their top target right now. He's one of the best wide receivers in the nation as a freshman. You have Emeka Egbuka as well, who's been playing some really good ball this year. I really, really think that Tennessee is going to shut Ohio State's offense down. I think they shut them down. I think they hold Ohio State to, I won't say under 20 points, but I do think that they hold them to about 24, 27, and Tennessee probably puts up 34, 37. I just do. I think that Tennessee wins this game tomorrow night, and they will advance to play. What is it? Yeah. They will advance to play Oregon. It will not be a Big Ten rematch in that game. It'll be Tennessee versus Oregon. So I'll go with them there. Now, tomorrow morning's a fun one. SMU Penn State. I already talked about it a little bit earlier. I'll take Penn State. I'll take it as a lower scoring game than what people are really saying right now. I think they win that game. a little bit lower scoring, but I think the SMU hangs in there. I think the SMU hangs in there until late, and then Drew Aller kind of puts together a nice little drive down the field, and they just win the game. They win it outright. They cover the spread. And I think they win the game. They will advance, and they will play. They will play whoever in the second round. I forget the bracket right off the top of the dome, but you have from what I'm seeing right now, it's going to be Arizona State versus Texas. It'll be Tennessee versus Oregon. It'll be Notre Dame versus Georgia, and then it'll be Penn State versus Penn State versus Boise State. So that is how I see it right now. But obviously things can change. I'm not saying I make a perfect bracket, but every now and then I make a perfect bracket, and this is going to be the perfect bracket. So this is how it's going to this is how it's going to be played out, and then we will see roughly around January 21st or whenever Martin Luther King Day is. That night we will see who wins the game, and it'll be the Texas Longhorns. I have the Texas Longhorns winning the national championship game this year. I have them facing off against Notre Dame. And I just think that Texas will probably be a little bit too dominant in that game and kind of just out physical Notre Dame. But yeah, that's that. A lot though in the college football playoff. We have a lot of eyes this year. A lot of eyes, and unfortunately, we have 12 teams. I won't say unfortunately. I'll just say why. So yeah, we have 12 teams in the playoff. I'll say why to that. It's not needed, but it's here. It's not going away. If anything, it's going to expand. So yeah, nothing you can do but just sit back, watch, relax, enjoy the game, because obviously we know that there's going to be a lot of good football games come from this. Now, whether they're not they're needed, no. What I thought was interesting about the college football playoff, they're taking the earnings from the ticket sales, and I think that's a little bit interesting. They're taking the earnings from the ticket sales, all of the on-field displayed logos, like the sponsorships and everything. For instance, if Tennessee, they're not hosting, but if Tennessee were hosting, they'd have to cover up the pilot on their field because you can only sponsor the college football playoff for whatever reason. That's the college football playoffs terms or something or whatever. That is just how they're rolling. So interesting. It's very interesting, but that's just how the CFP rolls, and we're just going to have to abide by their rules because obviously we're watching the game, and we all know that people aren't going to boycott. Over the last few weeks, though, I kind of want to shift gears here. Over the last few days, we saw an AD from Alabama. I forget his name, Greg Byrne, maybe. He comes out and he says this. He says that he believes that some of these guys are going to have to pony up. Now, not for word. I'm not going to quote him word for word, but he says that some of the guys watching, some of these fans of Alabama watching, they're going to have to pony up. They're going to have to put money into the collective so they can afford these players. Now, to me, obviously, I get it. These teams are noticing that other teams around them and other programs are starting to put together a pretty nice NIL collective and everything. So they're trying to compete. They're trying to compete, but to me, it just seems a little bit much. If you're asking for your fans after you're making $15 million a year, now I get there may be a certain rule where you can't give back to your university, but you're making $15 million a year. And you're asking your fans to pony up, give money to the collective so we can pay for these players. When you're making $15 million, $16 million a year, it just seems a little far-fetched. For the higher class to just ask the lower class to do that, to me, it just seems kind of odd. It seems kind of odd. It doesn't necessarily seem like it should be happening, and it just seems out of the blue. For one, you just don't expect for an AD or anybody of higher power to come out and do that word for word. It's like you're basically begging. I will say, I'm not even going to say basically, because that is pretty much what they did, or what he did is he comes out publicly and says, "Hey, if you're a fan, you need to give money to this collective so we can afford these players, so we can go out there and we can compete with these other programs. You're the University of Alabama." You're the Alabama Crimson Tide. You're not going to have any trouble competing with these programs. Obviously, you're going to lose a recruit every now and then. Why do you say you're going to lose a recruit every now and then? Why is that? Because money's a thing now. Money's a thing in collegiate sports. It's been a thing for a while, but now it's actually legal. So now you have to look into that. Now you have to really see where these programs are coming from. Hey, these guys are giving a certain amount of money to Bob Smith out of North Carolina to come play football for them. We'll look at these guys over here. By the way, Bill Belichick in North Carolina. Shout out to him. Then you have John Orr, who's playing football for Auburn, and they're going to pay him $15 million a year to come play wide receiver. Now, I know that's a little bit of an inflated number, but it just seems far fetched. Like it's not the college sports that we grew up with. Obviously, it's the collegiate sports that we're dealing with now. Whether we want that or not, that's kind of out of our power. We can sit here and hate on it all we want to, but unfortunately, it's just the reality of the game. I hate it more than the next person, but unfortunately, it's a thing. I love that the college football players or college athletes in general are getting paid. I love that. But the millions of dollars that people are getting paid, you have people who are you have people in college who are getting paid more than kickers in the NFL, and that just seems crazy to me, absolutely crazy. Because that guy's at a professional level, college is still amateur. Whether you want to paint it as professional or not, because they're getting paid, it is still amateur. Just from a standpoint of talent, you can't get somebody who's a freshman. I'm sorry, Ryan Williams is not there yet. You can't get somebody who's a freshman to go play in the NFL and then expect them to succeed. It's just not going to happen. So why are we paying these players millions and millions and millions of dollars in college, freshmen in college, when you have other guys who are out there in the NFL? You have kickers who are barely making. Brock Purdy, who's the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers at the moment, I believe he's making just over $900,000 a year, which is absolutely insane. We have really got to take a look at what college sports is becoming, because I'm not going to say it's becoming evil. What I am going to say is it's becoming a lot more like the NFL, and I don't necessarily know that I like it. Now, becoming like the NFL is good from a certain standpoint, whether it's the rules, learning to play the game like the NFL plays the game, like the NFL plays the game. I like that. I like that aspect of things. But when you turn around and you say this, hey, we're going to go pay our players the same that some of these NFL players are getting paid. Now, obviously, it's not $50, $60 million a year like some of the best players in the league are getting, like Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, that's not happening. But from a certain standpoint, the highest paid college football players right now are getting paid some of the same as some of the lower level NFL players are. And that's just the truth. And I think that is insane. It's one of the more important things in college sports that we've got to take a look at. Mickey Farmer chimes in, says Auburn 30% increases on season tickets for 2025. Yeah, I saw that. I saw him say, I saw a quote earlier that said that they were going to have to start charging for more. Uh, I think, like I said, I just think it's crazy. I just think it's crazy. Um, I get it, man. I get it, and it leads to tuition prices going up. I understand where these guys are coming from, but if you're really being reasonable, it's just not or reasonable and thinking straight. You have your head on straight, and it's not screwed all the way around your head. It's just not reasonable, man. It's just not reasonable. This is the Hayden Coker Show, presented to you by Chick-fil-A in Pell City. You can go down to Chick-fil-A on game days or whatever event you may be having, and you can get catering. Catering, whether it's nuggets, you can get the brownie trays, the mac and cheese trays, the strip trays, whatever you would like. All you have to do is go down to the Chick-fil-A in Pell City, and those guys will get you right. That's the Chick-fil-A in Pell City, right as you enter Pell City. Right there on the right, just turn right. I believe it's Cogswell. No, it's not Cogswell. But anyways, Pell City and Chick-fil-A right there on your right as soon as you get into the city. Kevin Moore chimes in, should fund, not can fund. Yes, but and that's kind of something that is poorly worded in his little speech. You shouldn't have to think that, hey, in order for my favorite college football team to be good, we should donate money. It should be, hey, if you want to, you can, which obviously is what it is. But when your AD comes out and says that, should, wording and verbiage is what it's all about, especially when you're a public speaker like that, or you're in the public spotlight like he was put. So I think it's interesting. I think you've got to sit back and look at it from a different perspective. But obviously, not everybody's going to do that. This is a Hayden Coker Show. Obviously, we love going live to you every Thursday. Obviously, this is a Friday. We had to postpone due to some technical difficulties last night with the Wi-Fi. But we are live to you, and we are live coming to you from Stillwater, Oklahoma. I'm in an apartment in Stillwater, Oklahoma right now, and we are powered by J&K Tire at the moment. So I highly appreciate the guys at J&K Tire. You can go down to J&K Tire in Still, Alabama, and you can get your whether it's you need your oil change, your tires rotated and balanced, you need the minor auto repairs, whatever you need, go down to J&K Tire in Still, Alabama, and they will get you guys covered. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We're not done yet. I want to get into a few more things before we go. You have the transfer portal, which is absolutely popping off right now. Right now, Eric Singleton Jr. He is projected to flip to Auburn at the moment. You have former Auburn quarterback Walker White, who is in the portal right now, who is visiting Baylor today. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. Auburn lands Jackson Arnold out of the portal from Oklahoma. You have John Mateer, who commits to Oklahoma the same day that he visits Oklahoma as the former Washington State quarterback. Obviously, you have Ben Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator at Washington State, going over to Oklahoma, and then John Mateer just kind of follows him. So I think that's very interesting. You have a lot of guys entering the portal. Dylan Lonergan out of Alabama, who transferred to Boston College. He reunites with Bill O'Brien. So I think it's really, really interesting to see what the portal is doing right now. All these players, I believe there was over 1,500 players in the portal at one point, if not close to 2,000, if not over 2,000. So it's really interesting to see how everybody is kind of entering that portal and just kind of evaporating from their old schools. Caleb Ramsey says Auburn better be good on the amount of transfers they got. And you're not wrong, Caleb. I certainly think that and Marty says, my guy, Marty, thank you for chiming in. Thank you for tuning in. I highly appreciate you, man. But Auburn has got to find a way to be somewhat successful this year, whether it's 8-4, 9-3. This is a team that can go out there and compete for a national championship with the roster they have. Now, obviously, I think coaching gets in the way. Can Hugh Freeze really go out there and make it happen with the guys that he has? I think that he can. He's got the roster. He has the players to do it, guys. He's got one of the better wide receiving core in the SEC right now. That's just fine. He does. You get the wide receiver transfer from Wake Forest coming over. He's going to be really nice. They have got to find some success in 2025. If they end up with a 5-7 season again, I think it's really time to start talking about Hugh Freeze's job security. Now, I get you're playing in the SEC. You have a tough schedule year in and year out. But this past year was Auburn, one of Auburn's easiest schedules in the last few years. And they performed at a very low level. And you just can't do that if you're Auburn football, especially last year with the talent you had, the defense you had. DJ Durkin came in and he really turned the defense around. First off, I got to go ahead and own up to that because I certainly said that DJ Durkin was not the guy. I'm sorry. Everybody who's out there, go ahead and attack me. I get it. I understand. But yeah, it's ridiculous. And they've got to improve this year. You look at what Ole Miss has done over the last few years. Lane Kiffin went over there and we get it. It's Lane Kiffin. It's Ole Miss. They're gonna live by the sword. They're gonna die by the sword. It happens every single year. We think they finally have a good enough team to go out there and win a national championship because on paper they could win a national championship. They had the guys to do it. They just weren't able to go out there and do it. I think Pete Golding's a really good defensive coordinator. Obviously, things didn't work out at Alabama. He goes over to Ole Miss, and now things are really starting to make waves. So. Obviously, that's great for them. Nicholas Adams chimes in and says, as an Alabama fan, I think Auburn played great this season. Nick, what are you watching, man? I don't really think that Auburn played great this year. But I'm going to say this. I do think you're talking about defensively. Defensively, they were phenomenal. There were just a few games where they really just looked out of touch and looked like they didn't have a hold of things. DJ Durkin did a phenomenal job down the stretch. I thought that over the last few weeks that Auburn was really going to put together a 6-6 season. They finished the season strong, other than the Alabama game. And Nick says, "I don't want Auburn to do good." Hey man, it's all about ball over here. We love it. We love the competition. We love the competitive rivalries that we see week in and week out, year in and year out. I think we're starting to see more of that. You have Alabama and Georgia becoming one of the more sought after rivalries in college football. I get it's not on paper a rivalry, and when it comes to historical facts and figures, it's not necessarily a rivalry. But if you look at it over the last few years, over the last decade and a half, it's really been one of those games that you just kind of gravitate to. And it's been one of the most watchable games of the day whenever it is on, or of the weekend. So it's one of the more watchable games. It's one of the more fun games to watch. So it's going to be fun. Over the next few years, we're going to start to see more and more of this rivalry, I do believe, especially with the expansion of the SEC over the past year. You had Texas and Oklahoma come into play. So And some of these rivalries are renewed. Texas and Arkansas, that was a fun one to watch. Texas and Texas A&M, that was a fun one to watch. So it's really, really fun to see some of the rivalries that are being renewed. Texas and Texas A&M, obviously, we know the history there. We know that there's a lot of passion behind that game. And the Lone Star rivalry game is back, and I'm really excited for it. And I cannot wait to see over the next few years just how it goes. Caleb Ramsey says, "You think Ashton Genty should have won the Heisman, or Travis Hunter blew it out of the water?" I'm just going to say this, and I'll leave it at this because I know it's a little bit of a controversial topic. I think that it was a fantastic, a fan like, and when I say this, I'm going to say it, and listen to me closely. I think that it was a very nice finish. It was very close. Obviously, I do think it was close. I made a comment. I said it was egregious that Travis Hunter won the award. And obviously I'm overreacting when I say that. I think that it was very close. I have no problem with Travis Hunter winning it. I think that it was a close award. But if you really look into it, I don't think that Travis Hunter would have had the same impact at Boise State that Ashton Genty had, and I'll stand by that. I think that if Ashton Genty played for Colorado, that they'd be in the playoff. I genuinely think that. You have guys at Colorado who've been playing out of their mind all year. You have Wester, you have Horn, who've been phenomenal at the wide receiver position. I'm not saying they're at the same caliber as Travis Hunter because he's been effective on both sides of the ball all year. But what I am saying is that Ashton Genty just provides that X factor. And I'm not saying that Travis Hunter doesn't, but I think that Ashton Genty did a lot more for Boise than Travis Hunter did for Colorado. I just do. I really think that without Ashton Genty, Boise State is probably a 6 or 7 win team. With the schedule they have, obviously, it's that win total is a little bit inflated, but that's what I think, and I'll stand by that. The show is powered by J&K Tire. Obviously, we are here because of them in Oklahoma. They changed our oil. There, I say oil. I'm coming more and more like an Oklahoman. They changed my oil on, I believe it was December 2nd. So yeah, it was December 2nd on a Monday. A Monday, excuse me. They changed my oil on a Monday, and then I drove up to Oklahoma. I proceeded to make the 10.5 hour drive, and I wouldn't be here without them. So I highly appreciate J&K Tire and all they're doing. You can go down to J&K Tire in Still, Alabama for all your oil changes, tires, rotations, minor auto repairs, whether it's your struts, your shocks, whatever it is that you need changed or fixed. They can get you figured out, and they can get it done for you. So highly appreciate the guys at J&K Tire, and truly, truly grateful for them powering us through the year and getting us to where we need to go each and every day. So massive shout out to J&K Tire. Now, with the Chick-fil-A in Alabama, I say Chick-fil-A Alabama. That's kind of weird to say since I'm in Oklahoma right now, but the Chick-fil-A in Pell City has been extremely great to us throughout the year, providing us with meals. Obviously, we're paying for them. But we've gotten some great meals from the Chick-fil-A in Pell City, whether it's been on our way to Friday night football, calling games, if it's been on Saturday morning, getting breakfast or lunch after our games that we're calling at Springville, whatever it is, and especially before our shows. We went live the Chick-fil-A in Pell City a few weeks ago. One of the better shows of the year. We had over 1,000 views on it. I think it's closer to 2,000 now. So cannot appreciate and we cannot thank Chick-fil-A in Pell City enough. Brian Jennings and the crew have really, really got us going this year. They have really showed a lot of love to us. So we highly appreciate them. We want to say thank you to them once again. We have one more show in the year, and that is going to be, it's not going to be next Thursday. It'll be closer toward the weekend. Or excuse me, not closer toward the weekend, but it'll be closer on into the following week as there will be college football playoff games early on into the next week. You have, I believe, games on Tuesday this year that are going to be playoff games. So we will be going live early on in that week. Nicholas Adams chimes in, says, "I only do Chick-fil-A to see the celebrity in action." Man, I got to get over there and I got to make some money, obviously, but we get over there, we do our thing. We'd love to see our guests, and it's just a fun atmosphere. So Caleb Ramsey chimes in and says Ashton Genty had better stats than Reggie Bush. And Caleb, that's where I think it was a little bit of a travesty. Like, I really thought that Ashton Genty should have won the Heisman. And obviously people can go around saying, oh, well, Travis Hunter, he's a two-way player. I get it, man. I get it. He's effective on both sides of the football. But I just don't necessarily think that he had as much of an impact as Ashton Genty had. I just don't see that. Now, and I get the argument you can make, well, Travis Hunter doesn't have the opportunity because he's got other playmakers around him. I get it. It's understandable. But that is just how I see things. That is just how I see it. Uh, Caleb Ramsey says, keep up the good work, man. Love it. I appreciate it, Caleb. I appreciate all the feedback from the show. I appreciate everybody staying in tune and comments and commenting on the show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been the Hayden Coker Show live, presented to you by Chick-fil-A in Pell City. We will be back next weekend, hopefully next Sunday night. And yeah, guys, I highly appreciate it. Thank you for joining. Obviously, you can't see me. Obviously, you see the outline. We are at Notre Dame Stadium, but we're live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Thank you for joining us. We will see you here in a few weeks, well, about a week and a half. And I hope you guys have a phenomenal time watching the game tonight. Go get Chick-fil-A to cater it. Y'all have a good one.